Hello, everyone. Welcome to Iowa Ideas. My name is Aaron Murphy. I am the Des Moines Bureau Chief for the Gazette, and this session is called Traditional versus New Programming. And we're coming to you from the Arts and Culture track with this one. Just as a little bit explainer of what we'll be talking about here and some of the questions we'll try to answer. How do you introduce new concepts in the arts while balancing the interest and support of seasoned supporters? We'll also talk about the process in how leaders in the arts community approach mapping out their seasons while considering things such as audience, strategy, and strategic goals. All right, before we jump into things, I just have a quick couple of housekeeping reminders for those tuning in. First of all, thank you for joining us. These sessions are being recorded and closed captioning access is available. Questions can be submitted to us through the chat function, the Q&A. So if you're listening and have a question for any of our panelists or the whole group, anything that we're not quite getting to yet, put that question in the chat. That'll get fed to us, and we'll address those as time allows. And in fact, we already have one right off the top, so that's great. We got a viewer question already, so we'll definitely get to that. All right. Now that that's taken care of, let's meet our expert panelists. I'll make a brief introduction of everyone here, and then we'll circle back with that and hear from each one of you. So we have with us Katie Hallman, who is Executive Director of Theater Cedar Rapids. We have Craig Campbell, who is co-owner of the Campbell Steel Gallery. And Jason, I did this in another session. I forgot to ask about pronunciations before we on the air, so I got to do it live again. Help me with your last name, Jason.
Try it. Go for it.
Jason Zbornik? Yeah, all right.
Nailed it.
Jason's from CSPS Hall. And finally, Jill Featherstone is Senior Director of Museum, Learning Engagement, and Community Access at the Des Moines Arts Center. So a great, well-rounded group here. I'm so excited for this conversation. Now that I've introduced everybody, let's learn a little bit more about each one of you and why we wanted to bring you into this discussion. So let's just go right around the horn here. I'll invite you all to tell us a little bit more about yourself and your organization and how your organizations work is kind of relevant to the discussion we're having today here. And Jill, let's start with you.
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm Jill Featherstone and my pronouns are she, her. And I have worked at the Des Moines Arts Center for a minute. I'm feeling myself get a little embarrassed every time I say this, but I'm in my 25th year at the Des Moines Arts Center. I moved here just as a baby about 25 years ago. But I think that I hope it speaks really well to the environment that the Des Moines Arts Center has been for 25 years. Little bit about my role at the organization and about the organization itself. So if you haven't been before, one thing I really want to make sure I tell folks today is that we are so fortunate to have such a wonderful philanthropic community around us in Des Moines that we are able to operate without any admission. So I know we're going to get to a revenue section of our conversation, and I do have some things to contribute there, but it is a real gift to start from that position of our doors are going to be open for free, with the exception of Mondays, to anyone who wants to come in and use the museum for respite, for curiosity, for art appreciation, for class. The classes do have tuition, but that free admission is a huge barrier to access that this museum affords. We are a staff of about 100 people. I would say about 60% are full-time employees, 40% are part-time employees. We have a group of about 70 volunteer tour guides or docents, and then we hire probably about 100 independent contractors who work as artists, teaching our classes throughout the course of the year. There are 3 semesters. And then, of course, a huge repertoire of exhibitions and our permanent collection programming. We have about 6,500 pieces in our collection of painting, sculpture, photography, works on paper, a little bit of fiber. We're getting more now into multimedia arts as well. So that's kind of like the big overview of the Des Moines Arts Center. So I'm happy to kick it off to whoever is next.
Perfect. Thank you much for that, Jill. Let's move to Craig Campbell. Tell us a little bit about yourself and the Campbell Steel Gallery.
I think officially I'm here. Officially, I think I'm here representing Campbell Steel Gallery, but Priscilla, my wife, and I have had our fingers in many pies over the years. And I'm sure that as our conversation moves forward, I'll be making reference to a lot of the different activities we've done, one of which started when we first moved back here in the late 80s. We designed scenery at Theater Cedar Rapids for 5 years, from 88 until 93. And that was a delightful period for us where we sacrificed the lives of our 3 children in the name of putting as much scenery as humanly possible on a stage before tick, 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 8 o'clock at night and the curtain opens. And we were notorious for don't touch that when you make your entrance because that's still a little wet over there.
Yeah.
And but we put our everything into it, and we loved that period of time. So that was our scenic design period at Theater Cedar Rapids. We also have, Priscilla and I also have designed and built fine furniture, which is just another facet of design. Design is design. It doesn't matter where the application is. It still works with the same principles. So that was about a 5 or 6 year period in our lives where we designed and built fine furniture. And then 1991, I started Lyre's Holographic Radio Theater, which was a hard to describe outfit here at Campbell Steel Gallery. And we did it led toward doing a television show. We did about 50 episodes of TV on Channel 9 and Iowa Public Television. And so that was an exciting period in our lives as well. We did Music in the Mud here, which was a concert series at Campbell Steel, possibly the most radically successful activity I've ever been part of. And to tell you the honest goodness truth, every activity I've been part of has been radically successful. But Music in the Mud was just overwhelming, just extraordinarily overwhelming and very gratifying. And one of the few things that I've instigated and participated in that wasn't my artwork. It wasn't Priscilla and me creating things as the rest of these things I've been talking about were. Instead, this was just as glorious, by the way, just as exciting. This was bringing artists in at the top of their game. And my job wasn't to create the art. My job was to create the nest in which to present the art at its absolute best. And in the case of a concert series, of course, that means great lighting, great sound, great sight lines, comfortable seats, good servers at the bar. I mean, so the entire structure was enjoyable. And while I'm thinking about Music in the Mud, I do want to make reference to one of the things Priscilla and I love about the Des Moines Arts Center. If I could point this out, that we have learned from, that I don't know if we needed to be taught this, but let's say our inclination was reinforced, and that is you go to the Des Moines Arts Center, not only is it free, so no barrier there, but you walk in the door, and within seconds of walking in the door, a delightful person behind the counter greets you, asks you what they can do to help you enjoy your visit and have it being a satisfying visit, and to be sure that you know some things that are available in the current exhibition, what you might want to be sure to see. It is just a gift. And that particular element is something that I have repeatedly, Priscilla and I have both repeatedly commented on to people at our own wonderful museum, where that is not the habit. Two very different experiences, walking into two very different museums. And it seems like such a simple thing. And Des Moines got it down. Anyway, so we like to think, with Priscilla and I like to think that our show begins at the front door. Our show doesn't begin at the stage or at the seat, or your experience needs to begin when you walk in the front door. And that's an important part of how we Priscilla and I do everything. So the reason I'm actually here to talk, I'm representing today, is Campbell Steel Gallery. And Campbell Steel has been in existence since 1991. Throughout the 90s, here in Marion, throughout the 90s and early 2000s, we represented about 150 different artists, and that was never my choice. That was a Priscilla Steele choice. And one of the things that we have done in our latest incarnation since, maybe 2016, let's say 15, 16, is we have focused on the artwork of Priscilla Steele. And that's all, that's plenty. That's what I would have done in 1991. And so now we are really at the best point we've ever been as the Campbell Steel Gallery, because we know exactly what we're doing, and we know exactly, more importantly, exactly why we're doing it. And it's just an extraordinarily enjoyable time for us, this period in our creative, artistic business, whatever. One other thing that's important maybe to point out before we move on, Aaron, is we maybe are a little bit of an outlier here, because everyone else is being referred to as an organization or a representation of an organization. We're a private business. We're Craig and Priscilla. We're Campbell Steel. We own it. The only thing I've ever done that was representing an organization or part of an organization was Liars Theater, was a nonprofit organization, and it was possibly one of the biggest mistakes I've ever made. That was not a good idea. I would not do that again. That's not this beast right here. I am not a nonprofit cooperative community. I mean, I'm the opposite of that. And so I would do that differently. It was hugely successful and went beautifully, but I hate to think of what I subjected a lot of people to during that period but let's move on. Okay, I'm done. That's me.
That's good.
Frank Campbell.
And that's a good distinction. I appreciate that. And catch me if I do that again, Craig. I've been dealing with a lot of organizations and groups, so if I do that, don't be afraid to correct me later. Jason, tell us about yourself and CSPS Hall.
Oh my gosh, where to start? I've been working in the Cedar Rapids, Linn County area for over 30 years in the arts and music community. Deep dived back in 2000 when I struck up a deal and started in arts and music space over at the World Theater. That's how I kind of started getting connected with CSPS. And over the years, I've run three different full-time live music spaces, working with emerging and young artists that were looking for a place to express their voice. And so that all led up to, condensing the story real short, that all led up to just a little over a year ago, post-COVID, started doing events again. Started working with CSPS again. I'd performed here over the years. I'd placed events, hosted events here, and became executive director at the very tail end of 2023. And I am here specifically to talk about organizations in transitioning audiences. We serve over 11,000 people each year. That's just the low end of the people that come through our building to engage with us on our stage. We have 3 art galleries in our building. We have 2 performance spaces, our main concert hall on the 2nd floor. On the 1st floor, we have a 100 capacity black box. And then on the 3rd floor, we have a really nice rehearsal space that a lot of theater groups, a lot of people rent the space out for. And CSPS began over 100 years ago as a community space. And so we love to think of carrying that legacy on, but for artists and artist voice. So we serve visual artists, we serve performing artists, we serve theatrical artists. We want to have a big, yes, let's make it happen, especially to new voices. And so the diversity of programming that happens here, we serve over 800 artists, visual, performing each year, and providing some of the most innovative, new, as well as traditional programming. So I'm excited to talk about how you balance that, how you introduce new things and still recognize the history and the things that people have historically loved.
That's great. Which one of those are you, Jason, when you perform? Which kind of artist are you?
I tend to perform musically. That's where I tend to fall. That's the events that I've done. My wife is an amazing visual artist, though.
Okay, very good, very cool. All right, Katie, tell us about Theater Cedar Rapids.
Yes, thanks. Hey, everybody. I think Craig gave some great taglines. One is at the sacrifice of our children. I'm a theater family and I have two young kids. So, yeah, it's theater's a lot. It takes a lot. But I was raised in Iowa. I was not born here, but I'm a boomerang, and I came back to the helm of Theater Cedar Rapids in 2017. So it'll be 8 years in the spring, which is wild. And Theater Cedar Rapids is now, in these last 8 years, we are officially the largest nonprofit producing theater in the state. We operate with a $3.7 million a year budget. We have almost 20 full-time employees, about the same number of part-time employees, but hundreds of contractors. So creative team members, actors, crew members, there's really just an enormous number of participants in the theater. We welcome over 50,000 people through the doors every year. The majority of those folks are attending shows in our auditorium, which is a 550 seat auditorium in our 1928 built Iowa Theater building that's been our home since the early 80s. We also welcome folks to the Grandin Studio. It's black box space where there used to be a printing press, as Craig will remember. But it's been the Black Box Studio since the flood of 2008 that seats about 100 people. And then we're in the midst of continuing to raise money for our capital campaign, and we will be opening a third flexible space in the former second balcony of the building. And that's going to allow for really introductory theater conversation. So I think as we were talking about audience and new and emergent programming and kind of tried and true and audience service, that's really driving the capital work that we're doing right now, and the investment and the look that we're constantly taking at the community demographic that we serve, and kind of the arc of the people within it and what they need it evolves so often. I think that I had something
Yeah.
else I don't know. I am like cutting my own face off with this thing. I'm making an executive decision. I'm gonna change my background. So keep going.
Well, I was just gonna ask real quick, Katie, what's on stage right now?
Um, we're in Carrie. Right now it's a musical based on the Stephen King novel Carrie, and we'll be mounting
Good.
the Thanksgiving play here in a month, and as well as Beauty and the Beast will take the stage in a month for the last time, and in what will be quite some time. That's going back in Disney's vault, is what they call it. So it's going to go back on Broadway probably. So
And Carrie, that's a good Halloween season musical to have on stage there. That's perfect.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's great. And the special effects are outstanding. We had a staff meeting. I was like, this is the coolest place to work, because we just stood on stage. And I said, can we just stand on stage for the gym scene for our staff meeting? Can we just run all the lighting and sound
I
cues?
can imagine.
And it was so great.
I can imagine. That's great. All right. Now that we got to know everybody and what you and your groups or your businesses do, let's start and broadly kind of jump in with the question that the session theme asked that I noted at the top. So when you all are making your plans, how do you balance considerations like audience interest, organizational goals? Jason alluded to the more traditional versus new programming, and of course, for everyone but Jill, that dreaded but critical element, revenue. Katie, let's circle the opposite way, and we'll start with you on this one.
Sure. I'm really fortunate to work with our artistic director, Angie Tombson. She and I have been together at TCR for almost my entire tenure. And I think a really challenging thing that theaters face and so many organizations face, but there is often a real dichotomy between what's considered kind of the back office or admin or executive office and the artistic office. And Angie and I committed to each other that that wasn't going to be how we operate. And also it isn't how we operate. She by training. I mean, I am an artist, I'm a musician and a performer. I performed on TCR's stage as Sandy in Grease. I was a camper in 5th grade, but I mean, I'm a performer, and Angie is also a performer and an artist, but she's a business person. And so because of that, and that intentionality behind our relationship has allowed us to double the number of people that we serve annually, and more almost triple our budget size. And that's been because we're committed to looking at every season and every year as an arc of experience that builds on itself. And so if we kind of assume a generation is 20 years, we're thinking across multi-generational programming and how we are speaking to and connecting with different age groups and evolving our processes and programming therein. That is like that is a grounding tenet, which I think all that sounds like super meta and whatever, kind of annoying, but but it's been essential in how we look at programs, because I refuse to sit in a room where it was like, well, Katie's going to fight for the show that makes money while Angie's going to fight for the show that matters artistically. That's BS, and it's lazy. And I have no patience for that kind of conversation, because I think if you have the chance to do something that is commercially successful and you don't bring artistry to it, then shame on you. If you are not taking seriously the potential of moving people through the art that is mass appeal as well as the things that are niche appeal, that's just a missed opportunity. And it's certainly not how I believe that community service organizations should work. So, that is the balance. It's taking careful consideration. We are producing theater 46 weeks out of the year. We are in rehearsal 50 weeks out of the year. And so everything that we are producing has an intentional audience behind it. And now what we have the privilege of doing is tackling our spaces and responding to our community audience to understand, well, what can we do differently for the folks who aren't attending theater because they weren't raised doing it? There's plenty of people who look like me and have the same amount of money that I have and live in houses like mine who never went to theater. Because their parents didn't take them or whatever. It's weird. It feels weird. Art feels weird. I was raised in the University of Iowa Art Museum. My mom was a curator there. I slept under her desk. Like, that's weird. And not everybody has that. So we're constantly, that's what we're asking. And I think as long as we do right by the people in the community that we have the privilege of serving, the money follows.
Very good.
The money follows.
Yeah. Awesome. That's excellent. Jason, let me come to you next. And as you told us in your intro there, your bio, I mean, you have kind of an eclectic, different, group of artists and performances that come to your venue. So tell us how you approach this.
Yeah. So it's, one thing I was thinking about when this question came up was, it doesn't matter if you're a nonprofit organization, if you're a business, if you started something small, you need to know what your mission is, and you need to lock in on that pretty hard. It's super easy. I would say it's a little, might you speak to this, Craig, but when you're working with a large team versus, this is me and 3 other people and we're driving the ship, you can get off course super easy. And it's hard to keep that ship focused. And so I also say you regularly have to come back to your mission. You have to reevaluate your mission in context of the community you're in and the time that you're in, because things do change. And once you know your mission, things become a little bit easier. But then when you have a legacy organization, something that's been going on for a long time, historically, you really have to think about transitioning to new audiences and also at the same time respecting existing audiences. And those needs might be a bit different. And can you give space to those? And some organizations won't be able to, some places won't be able to, some will. And CSPS is one of those organizations that we look at it as, we've got people that have, I've only been here for like about 12 months. And so many people are like telling me stories of artists that were here like maybe 30 years ago. And I was like, no, I don't know who they are. And then I go back to find out Some of them may not even be around anymore, touring anymore. When it comes to visual arts, it's the same thing. We do over 24 exhibits a year with over 75 different artists. Some of those are group shows. Some of those are solo shows that take up all of our galleries. So whether it's looking at our visual arts programming or our performance arts programming or theater, we really try to strike a balance of things that speak to people of all generations, those people that have been legacy sponsors, participants, guests of CSPS. I love hearing that they're still coming, because some people at certain points they will not be as active and going to things. So that's where it's important that you are also listening and you have your ear to the ground and you're listening to your community of the things that they want. And so you are also looking at the artists that you're serving. And we serve a lot of artists. So we start with that dialogue with the artists. We want to always have an open door to artists to say, this is a lighthouse. We'd like CSPS to be a lighthouse. We view it as one that if you're an experimental, if you're doing something new, fresh, we want to see how we can support that. We want to be that place that can say yes to that, as well as bringing in things that draw the overall mainstream audience. There's this terrible word often in the arts realm, in the music communities, and that's being a sellout or crossing over. But sometimes doing those mainstream things, it creates a dialogue for so many people. When you start to narrow in only on a niche type of event, you really limit too. And you also, those mainstream events, those bigger events that draw larger people, many of those people will discover your space for the first time, your organization, your service for the first time. And that becomes the inroad for all the other unique stuff that is a little more niche. And so you really have to balance that. You have to know your mission, make sure you're not falling too far out of your mission. It would be easy for CSPS to go, what's the path of least resistance? Okay, let's find the bands and the visual artists that can get 300 people in here every single time. What's a little harder is supporting new emerging voices that maybe can only do half that. And then you start having to get a little more creative. Like, how do you push the rest of those seats to get filled? How do you expand and excite people on something that is new? So there's a challenge, but that's what we're up for.
There you go. Is there any kind of magic bullet or secret sauce to striking that balance, Jason?
I'll be honest, CSPS is in a big transitional period. So we're just I feel like we're still on the front end of figuring out that balance, that Venn diagram, that pie, and how that divides out over the years. But one thing that I have spoken about internally and our staff is very keen on is trying to make sure that we are not too heavy on certain things and weak on other things. And that's very vague. But at the same time, it's like we want to have those artists that keep coming back every year, but we also want to do new things. And so we have 3 resident theater groups right now. And these are people that this is their home. We have, for all intents and purposes, an in-resident Spanish dance team that does they rehearse twice a week, and they do amazing programming throughout the year here in CSPS. We also have Rich Heritage just reached out to us to say, what would be the possibility to do a really alternative midnight show? And we're like, well, I'm like, yeah, let's make it happen. Then the next question, it falls right into our mission. It's a bit mainstream. You'll hear about it. I don't want to announce it yet because it hasn't been officially announced. You'll hear about it. It's got a mainstream element, but the presentation is so unique and different that I think there's an audience here in Cedar Rapids that'll be like, oh wow, that's different, that's new. And then how do you pay the bills? That's the next question after everything on our end. We kind of work it that way. Will it pay the bills? Will it exhaust our staff? Will it bleed our resources? So there's a lot of balancing, but on the front end, is it mission driven? Does it fall in or out? And part of that is looking at things that attract a large audience, your historic audience, and also excites new audience. And sometimes you're playing a balancing game of this many events target this many events do this, and you hope you have bleed over, and then you reflect at the end of the year and make adjustments and keep going down and heading on that journey.
All right, Jill, how does Des Moines Arts Center kind of come at these sometimes competing interests?
Well, first of all, Jason, I think that a lot of what you said also resonates with how we operate here at the Des Moines Arts Center. I've used the visualization of kind of spinning plates. It's like we have maybe 10 plates in action at every one time, and you can come over here and spin a plate, and then come over here and spin a plate. But the idea is that you keep all your plates up on their poles spinning, and each of those plates kind of represents a different track of how we are hopefully serving our community with our arts opportunities. So starting with like just what we are, our exhibitions and our permanent collection. We are really taking, we have a big exhibition space that we call our main gallery. We rotate that 3 times a year. And then we have a print gallery space where we can put in works on paper. That's the largest part of our collection actually is like works on paper. So we substitute that exhibition out 3 times a year. And then we have some auxiliary exhibition spaces that we're maybe doing 3 to 4 or 5 other exhibitions in the museum at any one time. And we're looking at that whole repertoire to say, you know, is there a synergy between what we're presenting at any one time? And sometimes we very intentionally are having a synergy between what's being presented in our main gallery and then like a little adjacent exhibition in our blank one area. Other times we're very intentionally different about what we have. If we have a main gallery show that's maybe a much more traditional painting exhibition, we might want to do something really experimental and media-based in another area of the museum. But I will tell you, it's all intentional. Like it doesn't just happen by happenstance, and it's very planned out. Also, very much with our the lens of looking at, is this sustainable and doable for our facilities team, for our registration team, all of the people who work behind the scenes to make the art presentation happen? Because, you know, we can sometimes be very ambitious with our programming, but, you know, it's really, there's a whole team of people working behind the scenes who are making it, having us open the doors every day. There is definitely an element of revenue and earned income and contributed income, though, to running the Des Moines Arts Center. So I don't want to say like we're 100% funded. We're not. We still have to earn money. And our 3 like revenue generating streams are through our memberships and through our fundraising events, and then also through we have a museum shop, and then we have our studio classes. But a lot of what are like kind of the gift of having the Des Moines Arts Center is we do have a couple of endowments that help us keep those doors open for free. But we're also writing grants. Principal Foundation right now is a big supporter of our free admission. So I definitely want to thank Principal for having us help keep the doors open. But then also in terms of looking at like what our exhibition schedule is, we offer these kind of tiers of programming as well. We have those mainstay lectures that draw 250 people to it. And then we might have like a more experimental program in an exhibition. Like we had a woman this summer who came to us from Dominica, and she had a dance performance that she performed with drummers in the space of an exhibition. So we would love it if those are the same audiences coming to those 2 things, but very probably they're not the same audiences. And if one program gets 250 people at it and another program gets 25, it's taken a while that we're not just measuring these metrics by saying one is worth more than another, but is that if that program for 25 people is super impactful, and one of the most brilliant things I've ever heard after doing something that we would say is kind of experimental in the galleries is a older cisgender, I can assume white man said, I didn't know I even needed to see that. And it was just something that totally opened up his experience of what it meant to see dancers perform in a space with artwork, with a unique score, and it just like exploded his heart. And that was like, that's why we do the things sometimes that push the boundaries, because art leads the way.
That's great. That's wonderful. Just a quick note here as we roll along to Craig next. The old adage is true. The time flies when you're having fun. We're already halfway through our discussion here. I couldn't believe it when I looked down at the clock here. So man, appreciate all you guys' expertise. Craig, bring this home, and then we'll move on to the next
Well, if
question.
we're short of time, if we're short of time, Aaron, you might want to just skip over me and go to the next question because abbreviation is
Not your strong suit.
no. I mean, clearly, Priscilla and I come at this question from a very different point of view. What I've heard from the other panelists that is so clearly focused, that is such a positive thing, is the first step toward taking any action is being clear in your own mind about what your purpose is. And Jason particularly pointed this out, is yes, there are all kinds of challenges in the implementation of an idea, but there's nothing worse than not having a clearly defined idea. And every one of the other panelists has very clearly enunciated what the goal is, what I'm after. And then within that, it's like now you start the juggling or the twirling of the plates. But first, you have a clear vision. For Priscilla and me as independent, private art people, our ideas all begin with us. We do what we want. We do it the way we want to do it. We do our best to let other people know what we're doing. The Gazette for decades has been the best friend of the Campbell Seal Gallery, almost like a partner in many ways. So you do have to let other people know. Art isn't one person in a dark room working by themselves. It takes that communication for it to become art. But we always start with what we want to do, how we want to do it, then we do it, and we kind of backfill the hole. So we subsidize it ourselves, we live where we work, you do all these different kinds of things that keep your expenses at as low as possible. You do exactly what you want the way you want to do it, and then you scramble to figure out how to pay the bills, and then you do it again and you pay the bills and you do it again. Now, that would be a very irresponsible way to run an organization such as the other three represented here, when you don't own the organization and you're not the only one involved. I mean, the risk is great. I mean, look at the number of people that everybody was just saying works on their team to create this stuff. Well, you can't put people's lives and livelihoods at risk with that kind of thinking. But when you're us, in our format, with the way we live, and it all lands right there, you can do that. And so that's just a different point of view for us. But we can move to the next question, because we could talk about each of these questions for
exactly.
an hour.
We could do a whole session on each one. But that's
Absolutely.
great. I love that. I love that different perspective is it's great to hear, both types of perspectives. So that's awesome. Of the one reader question, I'm gonna add here, and because it's similar in theme to one that I had on my list too, so I'll kind of dive into that here and maybe sort of combine them. So the viewer, sorry, reader is a habit. Viewer Eric Fries asks for you guys' thoughts on what you do when you feel as though you've become maybe stagnant or growth is plateaued. Reinventing an organization or business is a tall order, but how do you know when it's time to rethink your mission and how you fit within the community? And maybe, Jason, I'll let you start with this, because you sort of talked about going through an evolution process, and maybe this question lends to that a little bit.
Got two thoughts. My first two thoughts are, get somebody else, get another voice in there with you, because there's always somewhere new to go. I think of an example of when I was first learning to play the guitar, and somebody was like, it's good to get a new guitar instructor every once in a while. I'm like, well, why is that? It's like, a guitar instructor is only going to be able to teach you so much. They're going to teach you what they know, and they're going to teach it in the way they know. But just having somebody new come in, a new voice, a new way of holding the guitar, even a new thought process, can open the door of learning and possibilities. That it doesn't mean that last person wasn't doing a good job. It didn't mean that last era was wrong. It just means a new voice, a new way of thinking can be opened up that way. So I would encourage that to anybody that's feeling like they're being stagnated. Get around some people, go out, hang out, talk to people, talk about what your mission is, because there's always new ways to do that. Now, as far as like, and that can even go into like funding. You feel like you're hitting walls. As far as development, as far as presence, you feel like you're hitting walls. Try to get some new people around you, just so you can hear some new voices and some new perspectives, because that's happened to me many, many times. It's like I feel like I'm hitting a wall. And it's like I don't think that's a plateau. There's always people that love stuff. Now, in a market, where you're at, there could be a plateau of people that you are any organization is able to serve at any one given time. That is a potential reality. But as far as doing things new, finding new ways to get people in, it is challenging because you can hit a precipice, and you need a breakthrough. But that would be my first thing, is to get some new voices, get some new people around you, and then really listen to new voices. And that kind of goes with it. Just what do people want? What do people want? And all of a sudden, and then at the worst case scenario, I always say, if all else fails, wait. Take a break, go on a vacation, come back in 6 months. Because after COVID, there was the music scene in general in Cedar Rapids. I was very worried about it before COVID. COVID kind of did this weird reset. So many artists and bands hung it up. But then there was a whole new crop of people that I'm like, where did you come from? And so the time was right. So don't think real hard before you quit. Maybe you just need to wait a little bit, keep pushing forward, because what you're doing is needed.
Can I chime in next?
Yeah, please.
So what first came to my mind also was what Jason said, is it's bring somebody new in and get to talk to them about who they are, what they're passionate about, then talk about your organization. But like start to build your empathy skills for like, who else is around me? How are they proximate? Listen, and just right there by the act and the skill of listening, I think it's already going to wake up some synapses to a story that's different from yours. So focus on expanding your network of relationships and potential collaborators. And then something maybe like really practical, like an organization can go out and do this. And I swear I'm not like hired by Simon Sinek to say this, but I have found that this is helpful, is like listen to a TED Talk and really explore your why. If you're the director of the organization or in a position of leadership or influence, or if you need to be leading up in this case, like if you can really sit down and figure out like outside of the mission and the how, but if you can figure out the why, the way where you are today, I think you'll be really energized to help like reinvent the organization that you're working for. What are you particularly suited to do that no one else around you can do?
I have one more thing to add. I thought of this when what you're talking about is possibly, and this is to everybody out there that might be feeling like you're hitting a wall or you're hitting a plateau. Consider killing what you're doing and rebranding and starting anew. That doesn't mean your mission, your vision, what you want to see happen changes, but sometimes people get really excited about something new. So if your organization or your project is maybe even in a middle phase of growth, as opposed to being super established, publicly ending that and announcing that you're going to be doing something new, take a 6-month, 12-month break, reassimilate, relaunch as something new, can have crazy amounts of energy building and forward movement that never would have been possible. And maybe all you did was a slight name change and partnership.
I want to jump in, and Eric, we messaged a little bit, but I think this is global, but with a kind of two specific examples. I mean, first of all, none of us have any time or money, right? I mean, it's like I'm trying to break even all the time and failing most of it. It's just the arts are impossible. Even when we're successful and we're seeing lots of things, There's so much we don't control about the money and the revenue streams. So much that's out of our control. So much that's a surprise. I mean, like I'm against a wall because I'm just done with surprises and things are going fine. I'm just tired. And it's hard and it's so hard. I try and remember and empower the people around me, and I have the privilege of people. Go through two-way doors fast. You feel stale, you feel bored, whatever, you have an idea and it's a two-way door and you want to just throw something out there and see if it sticks and we can figure out how to do it, just do it. And if it doesn't ever happen again, don't worry about it. Well, okay, great. Let's throw a thing up. Let's do a reading of XYZ. I don't know. Let's just do it. If people come, all the better. If they don't come, well, we wanted to do it. So it's fine. It's kind of just go fast. And then in that way, I always say, but go through, if it's a one-way door, maybe pause for 5 minutes. But I just think we can all move a lot faster because no one cares about like our precious as much as we do. Like no one, even our most loyal audience members, like we are so protective and by nature, and it's right that we're protective of our brands and what we're doing. And there's just, yeah, we're always going to piss somebody off. So just piss them off. It's okay. Like more people don't care. And the vast majority of people will like it. I'll give us a very specific example. A pain point that we went through at TCR was punctuating the Underground New Play Festival. That was very cool when it started. It served a really great purpose for emergent artists in our community, for sure. And it gave actors in our community a chance to do something a little shorter, less rehearsal. It was a nice access point. And by the time I came around, it was not working. Nothing about it worked. Not just the economics, but it had become this total resource drain on people, and we didn't have time to do it with our production schedule. And it was heartbreaking for some folks. But the biggest thing that changed was the ecosystem within which TCR existed. That's where it's like we're all part of an ecosystem and we have our eyes open to that. And sometimes something I feel like is a big part of my job is kind of doing less better. We're real busy, but sometimes I have to say, yeah, the Underground New Play Festival isn't our lane. My husband opened Mirror Box Theater. These things were not connected at the time, but now they do a 10-minute new play festival. Their whole theater company is based on doing contemporary work in its Iowa premiere. That's not TCR's mission. We're here to be a cornerstone of the performing arts in our community and invigorate growth. But Mirrorbox is a new company. The three companies at CSPS, we all exist in this ecosystem. So sometimes you just got to be brave enough to say, yeah, we were doing this thing and it was really important and it lasted 5 years or it lasted 10 years or it lasted the last 400 years, but we don't need to do it anymore because look at how much the community's grown. And let's celebrate that by saying so long. RHCR does it,
No.
I have a 6-year-old that's coming in. I'm going to mute myself.
And so this is another viewer question that I thought was really interesting, and it's addressed to Jill, but I think it could apply to anybody else. So I'll start with you, Jill, but let the others take a crack at it if they'd like. So the question says, given the size of Des Moines and the plethora of attractions, venues, and events, how do arts organizations there work to stand out? I think that could apply to Cedar Rapids too, but we'll start with you, Jill.
Well, we talk a lot. We're in a strategic planning mode right now, and we talk about being, we're not exclusively a modern and contemporary art museum, but that has been the focus of our collection, our collecting practice and exhibition policies for many decades now. And we're kind of the only visual arts institution in central Iowa that's focusing on like that time period of art. So we also have access, because the artists are it's contemporary, they're living, we have access to these artists. And so I think that the proximity and the access that we are able to give to the community, to these artists, to like come to a lecture, to shake their hand, to get a book signed, to see them. We have an opening tonight, the artist is here, to talk with them. It's like that's something unique that we can bring to the folks of Des Moines. Then we can offer a workshop, actually, if the artist, we always ask, this particular artist is a photographer. We're connecting that artist with a group of youth who are gonna learn about like, well, where did the tradition of still life even begin? And then they're going to dabble in still life photography and like what kind of meaning you can imbue in the objects. Materials have meaning in creating these photographs. Then she's going to come back and do a master class with adults. So on all of these points, we are looking to provide something really unique that only the Art Center can provide. And going back to Katie's point, we really had a hard look again, like what are we doing right now that might be very successful, but we're not like a movie theater. So we really looked at some of our film program and we said, maybe that lightens the load for everybody because we don't have these film programs because there are lots of venues for film programming. And maybe then that opens the door for something that does uniquely have to happen at the Des Moines Arts Center. So it's really, that goes back to the mission and the values. If those are your guiding posts, let those be your guiding posts.
Yeah.
Do what you do and do it really well. That's how you're going to stand out.
Yeah.
And part of that goes back to what we've been talking about repeatedly is what's your mission? And knowing where you stand in the ecosystem of the creative community is really important because things can come down the CSPS pike and I could be like, oh, that sounds really cool, but why do that? TCR does that really well. Let them do that and let's us open up those dates to do something different. So you kind of really, again, it goes back to doing what you do really well from beginning to end. I even go back to what Katie said, not trying to do so much, but do what you do really, really well. And if that means you can't do certain things, that's okay. That's okay. You don't have to do everything. Do it really well and people will go away and you will stand out and it doesn't take long.
That's great. One more reader question I want to get to, and then, man, like I said, time's flying. We're inside our last 10 minutes already, and I do want to leave time for the last handful of minutes or so to give everybody a chance to give any closing thoughts they have. So keep that in mind. And we've gotten through so much, but I'm sure you have so much more to say. So if there's anything we haven't covered that yet, have that in mind for a closing thought. But I'm curious. This is an interesting one. I'll be curious if anyone has an example. The viewer asks, I'd love to hear any stories about how your organization might have gone in a direction that didn't resonate with your traditional supporters and how you addressed their concerns. Is there any anecdote that any of you have where you tried something and it just sort of fell flat and how you address that?
I got an example right now.
There you go.
It's a success and a failure at the same time. So I don't know how many of you have heard, but we launched this new Sunday social out in our courtyard. We had live music, we set up tables, we got new kegerators, we could have drinks outside. Super cool. Everybody loved it. I'd walk around. I was just at the bank today and somebody there was like, oh, I've been trying to get over to the Sunday social. That seems really cool. And this is an outreach event. This is really a type of thing to lean into that social aspect of CSPS while encouraging people to come visit our galleries who may not visit our galleries. So really successful on the PR front, on adding new visibility, on fortifying our brand that we are about doing things for the community. We are here. But the attendance was not stellar, but nobody, unless they attended every week, would know that. So it was a success on one side, but it wasn't on the other. And so you pivot and we're like, we're killing it. But only people that watch this and then tell other people will know that, okay, we're going to bring it back next summer. But we had thought maybe pushing it through in some other fashion year round, but we're just going to take a pause and reintroduce it next time because it's really cool. You come out there, it's really cool. But there was not 50 people showing up every week, but it was still a successful event.
Yeah, there you go.
I would
ahead,
I would add really quickly. It's like, what are our barometers for success? Sometimes, like Jason said, like, is it people? Is it mission? I started laughing at that question because I was like, yeah, I'm in a budget meeting right now, and it's like, well, what show isn't going to happen for reasons that I have? Someone's going to get mad at every single show we do. So someone's mad, and they have varying reasons and connection. My favorite email that I ever got and this is being recorded, so I'll be careful. But the favorite email that ever got to me, it wasn't to me, was an irate email. And it goes on and it goes on, and they cannot believe, they just simply cannot believe. And by the way, they didn't attend the show. Their friend did. And they just want us to know that they'll never come because of it. And I'm just like, you know what I mean? I mean, people are just like, people are wild. It's just wild out there. So what's your barometer for success? I mean, and I wouldn't worry about it too much. New Orleans, I saw a lot more. The theater I was at the helm of there. I think the lesson was we were working hard to serve the global majority in New Orleans, which is our BIPOC community. That is the majority of Orleans Parish, and I served a theater that was founded for white people in the French Quarter. And so when we tried to look at diversity, boy, did we mess up. Like we only messed up. And that is something culturally that is deserving of hours of conversation, right? And that was specific, of course, to the community I was living in, but it's a universal challenge.
Yeah. Excellent. Man, so like I said, I wanted to leave some time here for closing comments because we talked about so much, but I'm sure there's so much more that you all could say about this. So we got about literally a minute a piece before we got to turn the cameras off here. Craig, I feel like somehow it's been a while since we've heard from you. So let me start with your closing thoughts.
Well, I love everything that's been said. I wish we did have a couple hours.
I know it.
You could take a lot of time for each of these. Couple of things that occurred to me is back to a previous question. My answer would be there are worse things than closing your doors and getting out of the way for somebody younger and more spirited with more interesting ideas to take over. You can wind up becoming a placeholder, especially if you're drawing public funds to you, and there are only so many public funds in our public. And if those funds continue to go there, that means they're not going over here. And you could be an 80-year-old person carrying on the traditions of the 19th century well into the 21st century, while somebody over here is 35 years old who's anxious to get going and has got a million ideas, but there's no way to get traction because you're hanging on, you're just hanging on. So I love the concept to just, like Jason said, just trash it, get rid of it, try something new, move on. Artistically, I think everything has always worked for us. So I don't have any of those. Tried it and it didn't work. I did have a professional expectation goal, certainly during the Liars Theater years, and also tried it with the Music in the Mud. And that kind of failed. For example, I would pay a performer with the intention of having them develop a professional expectation for their work in the community. So I would pay them, let's say for their couple of days of rehearsal and performance, I'd pay them $900 for that, 4 days, 5 days worth of part-time effort, nighttime for a week, and pay like $900. And then they'd go the next weekend, they'd play in a bar for $25. And I would have the conversation where I'd say, so can I get you for $25? How about if I pay you $25 next month? Well, no, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, hang on. I thought your fee was $25. Well, not with you. So I did fail with that. I tried to raise that expectation, and I found that I was a fool because I paid the higher, and then it had no traction, or at least I don't think it had traction. And that's it. We don't have much time left.
Good. Jill, any closing thoughts on our way out the door?
My closing thoughts would be audiences want to know what they're coming into. Really pick your words, tell them like why you're doing something, and that helps develop trust. So words are important. Pick your words carefully.
Very good. Jason.
Excellent.
Dollars equal people. So it doesn't matter. You whether you're for profit or not for profit, if all your programming is free, if some of it's free, if some of it's paid, you're still using those numbers to kind of look for grants for, to justify, to pay the bills. And so if people are voting with their dollars, so to say, we've probably all heard that phrase, they're saying that type of programming is valuable to them. Now, again, you got to go back to your mission, what your core mission is, and create some qualifiers so that as you're building your programming for the year, if you're exploring what you're going to be doing for the next 12 months, what is going to qualify for the things that you're doing, and how are you going to disqualify things that you're not going to do, and have that very clear cut. And then those dollars will help guide you, and let those guide you. And if you're getting the grants, those are going to be based on numbers. So track your numbers, track who you're serving, be able to speak to that. And like Jill said, communication. You're transitioning from older traditional types of programming to new contemporary types of programming. Just communicate what you're doing. Let people know, because I did a festival called 319 Fest for 9 years, and it was interesting to see people in their 60s exploring some of the music that was at different stages at that event, that was really for younger people. And they're like, I'd never been to something like that. So don't assume that traditional programming and traditional audiences aren't going to like new stuff, because that's not always the case at all.
Excellent. And Katie, and I apologize, the orchestra is starting to play the music. So
No, you're good. I think this has been so much
give
fun.
us-
And I think in the arts and culture sector, we're in it because we think we can save humanity. And I think we probably can. And I think we are. So the reaction is the point. And positive and negative reaction is the point, because that's causing an emotional response, which is deepening someone's humanity, whether or not they meant to or not. And I think that's just a beautiful and hard thing. So we got to just keep fighting the good fight, right? And get ready for those angry emails. Fine, great.
All right. Thank you so much, gang. I got to wrap her up there. We'll do it again sometime, because this was great and we could clearly keep talking more. And
This
thank
was
you,
fun.
everybody
Thank
who
you.
tuned in.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you all.